Let's start with short explanation on what is philosophy. Philosophy is usually divided into 5 main branches: metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, logic, and aesthetics. Each of them focuses on a different aspect of understanding the world. Metaphysics studies reality and existence, epistemology explores knowledge and truth, ethics focuses on morality and the difference between right and wrong, logic examines reasoning and how arguments are formed, and aesthetics studies beauty, art, or what we consider meaningful or beautiful. From these 5 branches come many philosophical questions and different views that help us search for answers and find meaning in our lives. Of course, philosophy can be divided in many other ways, but this video isn't a high school philosophy class, so let's get to the real point of this video. When you think about anime characters with deep philosophical views, a lot of names probably come to mind. You might think of Light Yagami, who believes he must become a necessary evil to erase all other evil from the world. Or Thorfinn, who begins as a ruthless killing machine but later transforms into true pacifist, believing that no one deserves to be hurt. Or maybe you think of Spike Spiegel, who drifts through life day by day, embodying existentialism as if his time has already passed. There are countless great examples representing different philosophical perspectives, but for me one of the deepest and most meaningful characters is one of the most famous one out there, Luffy from One Piece. To some, it may sound stupid or funny to say that Luffy is a philosophical character, considering how goofy and carefree he is, but that part of his character is actually very essential to his depth. To start with, even the way he develops is different from what we usually see with most fictional characters. In most stories, the main character goes through hardships and then changes or grows because of them. Ken Kaneki is a great example of that. But even with more ordinary characters, stories usually make them experience something that changes or develops them in order to keep them interesting. Luffy, however, is quite the opposite in that regard. Instead of constantly developing, from the very beginning, Luffy is already the same person we see later in the story. He is established with his own views that do not change no matter what he experiences, no matter how hard things get or who he loses, he never wavers. When you first start watching One Piece, these things might not leave strong impression. I didn't notice them either at first. It wasn't until after finishing the Wano arc I decided to rewatch the East saga, and that's when it all started to make sense. Luffy's character isn't really developed throughout the series, instead it is established from the very beginning, and as the story progresses, we simply start to understand his character on a deeper level. Luffy may be the main character of the story, but he is written more like a symbol rather than a traditionally developing protagonist. From the very first arc, we understand that all he wants is to become the king of the pirates, but only because in his eyes, that person is the freest person in the world. Throughout the entire series, we see that this belief only becomes stronger. A great example of this is why Luffy refuses to be called a hero, or even gets irritated when someone refers to him that way. In his eyes, a hero is someone who has to serve others and fulfill responsibilities. That kind of role would only tie him down and contradict with his desire for freedom. Of course, Luffy's own explanation is much simpler. He says that heroes have to share their food with others while he wants all the food for himself. But the fact that Luffy can be deep doesn't stop him from also being stupid. Those two things don't necessarily contradict each other. Now that we understand why Monkey D. Luffy is such an extraordinary character, let's focus on why I chose to make a video about his views instead of someone else's. The reason is actually very simple. I want to be just like him. Everyone wants freedom. It has been studied that every human being desires to be free, but we all interpret freedom in different ways. Some people want financial freedom. Others want to live without being bound by anything and simply experience life in the moment. Some want freedom that comes from self-control, being able to control their desire and emotions instead of being led by them. All of these are forms of freedom to some extent. Even the desire to rule over others could be seen as a search for freedom, because if no one stands above you, then you are finally free. Unfortunately, most of us will never truly reach that freedom. Maybe it's fear, maybe doubt, or maybe it's something else, but most people eventually stop fighting for it. In many ways, that has become something society accepts and even encourages. Today, it is more often acceptable to walk the safe path rather than the one you truly want. Instead of encouraging you, people may judge you or even criticize you for trying. And that's exactly why Luffy is such a great character. He never questions himself, he never wonders if he is good enough, he never doubts his own path. That's why I see him less as a typical hero and more as a symbol. Luffy judges everything using his own moral compass. He doesn't care about the established order. He doesn't care if someone is a marine, a pirate, or just a civilian. And he certainly doesn't care what others think about him. In many ways, he represents what we all should strive to be when it comes to following our dreams. What fascinates me the most is that Luffy inspires others simply by being himself. In One Piece, he doesn't just free the oppressed, he inspires them to free themselves. Without even realizing it, he changes their perspectives and gives them hope. Everywhere he goes, he disrupts the established order and changes people's lives. Even if we look at the Straw Hats, they don't follow him because he is the strongest, the wisest, or the most strategic. They follow him and entrust their lives to him because Luffy is something they have never seen before. Even they sometimes struggle to explain why they are so drawn to him, but being with him makes them believe that their dreams are possible. And because of that, every one of them would sacrifice themselves for him without hesitation. And I can't make a video about One Piece without mentioning the GOAT, Eiichiro Oda. I will glaze this man until my last breath. Just think about it for a second. What kind of genius do you have to be to create not only a world this massive, but also a character like Luffy who stands completely apart from it? The world of One Piece is not a kind or fair place. It's ruled by power. The world government maintains control through fear and authority. Many pirates abuse their strength to dominate others, and those in power often act like tyrants. If you oppose them, you are erased without hesitation. And in the middle of all that, Oda creates Luffy, a character who doesn't fit into that system at all. Everyone who sets out to find the One Piece and become the Pirate King is usually driven by power, control, or dominance. They want to stand above others, but Luffy is the complete opposite. He doesn't want to rule anyone. He doesn't want control. The only reason he wants to become king of the pirates is because in his eyes, that is the person with the most freedom in the world. That idea alone completely contradicts everything around him. Oda didn't just write a strong protagonist. He wrote a symbol of freedom and placed him in a world that constantly tries to suppress that very idea. And what makes it even more impressive is how naturally it's done. Luffy doesn't give long speeches about freedom. He doesn't try to convince people with words. He simply lives the way he believes is right, and that's what inspires others. And that's where things go beyond fiction. Because Luffy didn't just become a symbol inside the story, he became a symbol in real life. With every passing year, we see it more and more. Around the world, people who are fighting against oppression have started carrying Straw Hat flags during protests. In some places, they even used Luffy's image as a representation of resistance, hope, and the desire for freedom. And that's something you almost never see with fictional characters. Yes, Luffy is not the most complex or philosophically layered protagonist. He is simple, but that simplicity is exactly what makes him so powerful, because his message is clear, pure, and impossible to misunderstand. For a fictional character to inspire real people, people who have lost hope, to believe again that change is possible, that is something truly special. And what better way to end this video but to say, strive to be like Luffy. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video was worth your time if you reached this far. I was Mugen and see you soon.